Hello, my name is Richard West. I'm a sufferer with Behcet syndrome. It's a very rare illness. In the UK, it's 1 in 100,000 people that have got the illness. It's known as the silk route disease, where it's more common and prevalent in Turkey, China, the Russian states, and up through into Japan. It's an inflammation of the capillaries. It can affect anywhere in your body. It gives you, the main symptoms are multiple mouth ulcers, leg ulcers, genital ulcers, and ulcerations of anywhere else in your body, any other organ. The two main complications really are neurobehcets, which is where it affects your brain, and you can have seizures, strokes, and the other main complication is uveitis, where it basically gives you ulcers of the eyes. We have lots of our members that have unfortunately lost either partial sight or fully have lost their sight. We've got 400 members in the UK and we're a very active society. My illness started in 1995. I was then aged 40. I'd never been into a hospital apart from being born, I think. I'd never had any operations, no broken bones, nothing. I suddenly woke up one morning and I had a swollen ankle, and I didn't think much of it. I thought I'd twisted my ankle somewhere, and I went on. It got worse over the next couple of weeks, and to the stage that I then started getting spots, really from my stomach downwards and all over my legs. I went backwards and forwards to the doctor. I was in a practice where we had 8 different doctors, so you saw a different doctor every time you went into the practice. I then started to have other symptoms. It went on really quite quickly. I had multiple mouth ulcers, and they were of such a state that I couldn't eat. The only things that I could eat were custard, soup, ice cream and mashed bananas. I lost 4.5 stone in 4 months. I had terrible arthritis, which also comes with the illness, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was backwards and forwards to hospitals again. They didn't really know what was wrong with me. I didn't look ill, and I think that's one of the most important things, that people, I think, didn't realise how ill I was, and perhaps I didn't realise myself how ill I was. I really couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't do anything. I was self-employed, so I suddenly had no income coming in. I had 4 children and a wife, and life was pretty difficult at the time. I can remember my wife having to go back out to work full time, and it really was a problem functioning daily. I had particular problems with headaches, which come with Behcet's, and there were headaches that went on all day, and they just went on for day in, day out, week in, week out. I couldn't concentrate. I didn't want the phone to ring. I didn't want to speak to anybody. I went really into a shell. And I think I was really unwell for quite a period of time. I eventually got wheeled into hospital on 2 occasions because I really couldn't cope with the pain. The pain was phenomenal and the fatigue was awful. I used to sit around most days. I couldn't do anything. It was quite awful. And eventually I was seen by a doctor who thought he might know what it was. I had various tests done, but they couldn't still confirm anything, and it went on for about 8 or 9 months. And then eventually one day a nurse said to me, they think you've got Behcet's. I couldn't even spell it, and I had to ask her how to write it down. It's actually named after a Turkish dermatologist. Eventually I was referred to, thankfully, to a doctor in London who's a specialist in Behcet's. And the tablets was changed over, and over a period of 3 years I couldn't work because I felt so awful, but I had terrible infected leg ulcers, which were the biggest, almost saucers on both legs. I couldn't walk. It was pretty awful. I eventually got put on some tablets that started to work. The leg ulcers cleared up. I was given another tablet which eventually cleared up the headaches, which thankfully don't come around now very often, but sometimes do. But in that period of 3 years, I'd lost my job, I'd lost my income, lost my savings, We had to move house, and it was pretty traumatic all the way round. And again, I still didn't look ill. In fact, I looked quite healthy. I think it was difficult for my family to come to terms with what had happened to me. I certainly had difficulties coming to terms with what happened to me. I eventually put my life back together again. I went starting to go out to work. I could only work part-time, and eventually I joined the society, the Behcet Society, which helps other sufferers. I think one of the major problems with any rare illness is that it's difficult finding other people with the illness as well and talking about it, because whatever real illness you've got, it tends to affect you in the same way, that you feel very lonely. People don't understand what's going on in your life, and it's very difficult to come to terms with it. It changes your life dramatically. Our illness comes in flares, and so you can be unwell for 2 or 3 months, and then you're okay for a couple of weeks, and then you're not too well for 2 or 3 months. In our country, in the United Kingdom, it's very difficult to get benefits because they say you have to be ill all the time, and that with an illness where there's flares is very difficult. I now represent the Behcet Syndrome Society. We hold annual general meetings every year. We have an international society where we meet every 2 years, where we get together and hold events to try and really give information to other people throughout the world, because it's an illness where people desperately want information. And there's very few people, doctor-wise, who know about the illness and specialise in it. So that again is a problem. I think that's my story. I hope you find it of interest. I've met a lot of interesting people since I've had the illness, but I wish I didn't have the illness.